in some branch of the military. Remember, Franz Joseph was emperor, king, president of the Austria-Hungary group in Austria, and he controlled everybody for 48 years. And he fought a lot of wars, but he lost most of them. And when he lost land. But the other thing is, if you were drafted into the military at that time, and you went to war, and you lost your arm or your leg or whatever, they gave you back to your family, and your family had to take care of you. There were no benefits. There wasn't even much pay. And so Grandpa Lesjack, Anton, was in the military, but I don't know exactly which branch. I have a picture that I'll show you, as we go through this stuff, and it shows a sword, not the kind of sword you've seen, but a straight one,
Mm-hmm.
and it had a flat side to it. And he was lined up and not lined up properly and not holding his sword properly when the sergeant or the sergeant at arms or whatever disliked what the way Grandpa was standing and got punched. Now, Grandpa Lesjack at that time would have been 18 or 19,
Yeah,
maybe
military.
20. I don't know. I'd have to look at the numbers.
This is your grandfather or
My grandfather, my
okay.
father's father.
Not Anton Jr., but Anton.
Anton Jr.
Jr., okay.
So Anton Sr. was my great-grandfather.
Yeah.
So my grandfather, Anton Jr., didn't punch the guy back. He whacked him on the head with the sword, the flat side, and knocked the guy out.
Yeah.
And then he went home
Wow.
because he didn't like the military, and he knew they were going to come after him because that's the way that things were done, and they would have done something terrible to him.
This is 1891 or 92?
All right, now you got to think about it. He was born in either 1856 or 1868. So he would have been 20 in 1888. So it'd be somewhere in the 1880s.
Okay.
and it has to be because they all got together, and it may have been his younger brother Joe. Joe was crazy like that. He left, and Joe Lesjack was the first one to leave Stishna and go to the Alps and then down to Antwerp, Belgium,
Mm-hmm.
and get on a ship and go to America.
Oh.
But I never found the ship he landed on. I never found his passenger, his name on a passenger list, nor did I find Mary.
And that was in the 1880s that Joe left.
No, he would have left in 1892. He would have crossed over in 1892.
Okay.
He would have been hiding out in the meantime. This is all different back then. There were no electronics or anything.
Right,
It was all word of mouth.
Right.
And so he came over 1892, and then Grandpa Lesjack didn't come over till 1893. But I have a series of baptisms not a series, a lot of baptisms that took place in 1895 in Keithville, Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
St. Mary Church. And Joe Lesjack at that time had 2 children baptized. And the woman's name, the mother of the children, was Josephine Ream, R-H-E-E-M. May have been Rem, I don't know, spelling wasn't important then. But anyway, he had 2 children with her. And when the family left to go to Frontenac, Kansas, Joe left with them and abandoned his woman and their children.
Wow.
So when he got to Frontenac, he changed his last name to Lesjack. So if any private detectives or the Pinkertons were after him, they would be looking for Lesjack, not Lesjack. And he immediately got the girl next door pregnant, and they stayed married for life. And he died in San Leandro, California.
Okay. But back to the military and the sword event that then Anton Jr. decided to leave Stitchna. Is that did I get that correct?
Yeah, what about it?
Oh, so you said that's when they all got together and departed Stitchna at that time?
They probably had a meeting, but I don't know that they all got together.
Okay.
But I think that they decided at that time to come over. Another motivation was that a group was coming over. They could travel together because none of them spoke English. They all spoke German. The other thing is the passenger service or the passenger ships lowered their prices, and they went. I think it cost $10 or $12 to cross the Atlantic.
Wow.
But we're talking about steerage,
Yeah.
where you brought your own water and your own food.
Yeah.
And if you
For
ran
weeks.
out, you had to buy it from somebody, and the price was enormous.
Wow.
But you lived in steerage, and living conditions were abysmal,
Yeah.
if anything. They had no restrooms.
Right.
They had no running water.
Off the side of the ship.
Yeah, and where did they sleep? I don't know.
Indoor, outdoor,
Yeah,
wherever they
I've
could.
looked for those conditions, but somehow you can't find much information on it. You can only find what people told other people about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was not pleasant. What else?
Just that I didn't know that was the motivating factor. Probably one of several, but that made it urgent to depart.
Yeah, and the other thing is the advertising said, "Come to America, land of the free,
Right.
opportunity, a better life, more money, better working conditions," and they were all coal miners,
Mm-hmm.
and they had the same working conditions, and then they didn't get any better. It was awful. I don't know how we survived, but we're lucky to get here.
So they spoke German in that part of when it was Yugoslavia, and then they went to Germany. Where did they go in Germany?
Over the Alps
Yeah.
and to the Ruhr Valley, Ruhr.
Yeah.
And the Ruhr Valley was at that time just developing, it was just becoming industrialized. Machines were taking over.
Okay.
And they needed coal to power the machines.
Yeah. So they mined coal in the Ruhr Valley
Yeah.
to get enough cash for the trip.
Yeah, to be a coal miner, you had to be able to sign your own name. So there was a sign there that you had to have at least 90 days of education. I'm serious. That was the requirement. You had to have 90 days, which meant at the end of that 90 days, you should be able to write your name.
Wow.
And that made everything legal.
And know what the letters meant.
Yeah, if you look at
And that was all in German.
Yeah, it's all
Okay.
in German. If you look at the Dakota name in Canada, the Dakota were not the Dakota, that developed, that evolved. When we came over from France, our last name was Lefebvre, but it was spelled Lebfvre. In that town, somewhere near the St. Lawrence River, I forgot the name. They all moved around and then they became farmers. But then they were working as farmers and a farmer's handyman. They didn't own the property, they rented. So anyway, the Lefebvres had a lot of Lefebvre men in this one area. So, and it was close to the river, which meant a riverbank and a hillside. So Joseph Lefebvre got married, and he was illiterate. So when he got married, his name became Joseph Lefebvre Dite, D-I-T-E, meaning Lefebvre, meaning Dakota. It's a nickname for Dakota, and it meant living on the side of a hill. So Joseph Dakota lived on the side of a hill. And when he got married, his marriage certificate said Joseph Lefebvre Dakota, but he couldn't write, so he had his friend write his name, and the friend wrote Joseph Dakota, Descoteaux, and we were no longer Lefebvre, we were Dakota.
Okay.
And that was in the 1860s, I think it was.
1860s. When did Lefebvre come over from, and do you know where from in France?
No, but I know an estimated time was around 1617. It was when Canada was first developed.
Wow.
And first colonized. See, they were all loyalists. They were loyal to the king. Canada at that time I mean, yeah, Canada was owned by England. Remember, the countries were all taking over other countries and making colonies, so that the colonies would have to pay them money and buy
Yeah.
their goods, and
Yeah.
they were all bullies.
Resource
What else?
extraction. And so Lefebvre is on your mother's side?
Mother's father's side.
Mother's father's side.
Have you been to Canada?
Just that once when we bumped over the border.
When what at the border?
We bumped over the border to go to Kmart when I was 9, I think. When we went to Michigan to visit. Everyone.
1980. Yeah, we went
1980.
to Windsor, Ontario.
Okay.
It was just across the border from
Yeah.
Detroit.
Yeah.
We went through the Windsor Tunnel.
Yeah.
No, I meant you and your travels with
With
Zoe.
Zoe drove. Because she's done cross-country driving trips in the United States, she thought driving coast to coast in Canada would be interesting, and discovered it's quite boring in the middle. That both sides are okay,
she was
but
way up north and
yeah,
northwest.
yeah, just endless
Yeah.
nothingness up there.
If you go, I hope you'll go to the city of Quebec
Yeah,
and go out and look at the St. Lawrence River. If you go to the city of Quebec, you'll think you're in Europe. It's like all the old European cities.
I've seen a lot of pictures. I definitely plan on visiting that whole area.
And they're all rock solid.
Toronto, Montreal.
I had dinner in a building that was built in, I think, 1709 or something. And the structure, it was interesting just seeing the structure of the thing.
Mhm.
But, it was very charming also. But you get to the edge of the city of Quebec, and all you see is this beautiful St. Lawrence River. And it's such a historic spot. You can see there's the path that the British soldiers took to climb up the hill to get to Quebec, to take over the city. And they were always fighting the Indians, the English,
Yeah.
the French, the Americans.
Yeah.
And then we got the city of Quebec. But we could have had Montreal as the 13th colony, except Ben Franklin somehow got involved, and he made everybody mad in Montreal, and they kicked him out and said, no, we're going to be French Canadians. And so the 13th colony stayed in America. And that's your history lesson for today, boys and girls. I want you to study pages 10 through 14.
Okay.
And we're going to have an exam on it Friday at 10 a.m. Be ready.
Wonderful.
Au revoir.